my name's Mary. I'm a flower farmer and floral designer in Brainerd, Minnesota. I've been doing this for about 4 years now. This will be my 5th season, and this is the Farmer Florist's year. Installment number 1. People always ask me, oh, well, you have a long winter where there aren't any flowers growing. So do you just get to relax and rest? Just have a chill time in the winter? No. Even in January, I'm putting in pretty much full-time hours working on planning. In Minnesota, we only have 3 months of frost-free weather. Now, I can get flowers to bloom for 5 months, between May and September. But May has frost at the beginning, sometimes to the end. September has frost in the middle, sometimes at the beginning. So I have a very narrow window of time for flowers to grow and for me to make money. So the pre-planning is crucial to making sure that I'm maximizing all of my space and all of my time with as many flowers as possible. I start off the year by going through my lists of flowers from the previous year. I analyze what did well, what grew well for me, what made a lot of money, what people really liked, and what I really liked, and I go through and figure out, okay, what am I keeping, what am I going to get rid of that I don't want to grow again this year. This is the list. As you can see, it is very long. This year I'm growing over 55 species or types of flowers and over 200 varieties of flowers. Species is like the kind of flower, like sunflowers are a species and dahlias are a species of flower. And varieties would be like different types of dahlias, colors and stuff, just to specify that. Then I go through all of my actual seeds that I still have from last year and see what I'll be able to save and use again next year, what I have left over. Then when I've gone through and figured out what I have and what I want, I have to go and buy the flower seeds. Even though a seed packet costs between like $3.50 and like $5 a piece, it adds up really fast when you're buying dozens and dozens and dozens of seed packets. This is actually usually my biggest expense category of the year. I may have a bit of a problem. I just really like flowers, okay? Leave me alone. Okay, I like to have a lot of different kinds of flowers because more than anyone else, I'm the one that's designing with them, so I get to pick what I like. I could just specialize in a few different types of flowers and just grow large quantities of a few different types. That would be more efficient and it would be easier and way more cost effective, but I like to have a lot of different stuff. So I'm willing to put in all the extra work to grow a lot of different things. Once I have my list of everything that I'm gonna grow, this comes into play. This is my garden plan. Okay, oh, it's upside down. This way. It's a diagram that shows me where each planting is going. It shows me how many flowers are in each planting and how long each one is and all sorts of information. So this is the way that I like to lay out my garden. That's definitely not like the right way to do it. Everyone is going to be a little different, so just keep that in mind that this is just the way I like to do it, and it's worked for me, so I'm going to keep doing it that way. So this is my final draft, but I also have a simplified first draft version, which I think we're gonna look at because it fits in the frame better. Hold on. Oh yeah, this is way better. Okay, so I've placed every single flower variety in this plan very strategically based on a number of factors. So this rectangle here, it starts about here, it goes all the way down here and back up. It covers these 2 rows. That represents the hoop house that I have out in the garden this year. This is my first year using it. I'm not sure exactly how it works, how it's gonna work, and it's been a pretty big pain in the neck so far, but the basic principle is that it creates a warmer climate than what is outside, meaning that I can plant things out in the hoop house like a month before everything goes outside, and flowers will bloom in there like a month earlier than everything else. So it's a really awesome tool to have. This little rectangle represents a little 5x10 kit greenhouse that my uncle gave to me. The flowers that are in here, like sweet peas, tulips, snapdragons, things like that, those flowers can tolerate and sometimes even prefer colder weather. So I put them in there because I know that they'll grow better when it's cooler when they're in there, and that'll give me a whole month extra in the spring and a whole month in the fall. Up here in the northernmost corner, this is north by the way, up here in the northernmost corner I have some vines and sweet peas, and then I have some sweet peas here as well. This kind of darker area represents a big gap that's in between these 2 different beds. So the reason I put these vines here is the vines obviously get very tall. The sun basically is always a bit south of the garden. So everything in the garden kind of throws shade to the north, to the point where if something is behind a tall plant, it'll just get shaded out and it won't be able to get as much sun as it needs. So the taller things go in the north, and they also provide wind protection then. That's the other big factor. Most of the really destructive stormy winds come from the north here. So having the tall vines, and I have tall plants up here, and then the hoop house here and the tall vines here, provides a wind protection for the other plants that are on the south side. That's why I have my dahlias kind of in this sheltered area, because dahlias, if you don't know, can get really huge flower heads, and those things will topple from the slightest breeze. So I keep them very carefully in the shelter of these tall structures and vines. I put my sunflowers here because they also get pretty tall, and I'm growing like 1,400 sunflowers this year. No big deal, no big deal. So that's the garden plan. But it's only a small part of the planning process as a whole, and actually not the most difficult part. The most difficult part is what I'm about to talk about. What makes it so difficult is that I start all of my flowers from seed. Starting flowers from seed is a tedious and patience-testing process. But I like to do it because I have more variety available to me and more of what I want from seed as opposed to getting plugs or plants from a greenhouse or something. Each flower requires a different amount of time to grow and bloom. Some flowers are going to be ready to go like 8 weeks after you plant the seed, but some plants can take up to like 25 weeks from the time you plant the seed to the time they're ready to bloom. So, like almost every different flower is different. That means I'm planting different flower seeds every single week from January through to June. I have to schedule all of these plantings so that every single plant is ready to go when I want it to go outside and ready to bloom when I want it to bloom. There's a whole another layer to the scheduling process, which is known as succession planting. Some types of flowers will just keep putting out new growth as you're harvesting them from the time they start blooming to the time that winter comes, basically, and you're done. But some plants will have a limited amount of growth that they'll put out, so you have a certain amount of flowers you can cut off of them and then they're done. So you have to plant these flowers in batches, a few weeks apart, so that by the time one batch is finished blooming, the next batch is just getting started. Here's the planting schedule. I have it in an Excel spreadsheet, which makes it very easy to organize things and input information. I have all of the different types of flowers listed here, and each flower has some data attached to it here and here, and this is the actual schedule part. So here's how I schedule the planting. Each of these little groups of 3 represents one succession or batch of seedlings. S in each of these little groups represents the date that I plant the seeds. T represents the day that the seedlings are transplanted outside, and B represents the date that the flowers will bloom, approximately. I'll use amaranth as our example. First, I determine when the first succession or batch of seedlings can be transplanted outside. For amaranth, that's about May 17th, around the last frost. Then I figure out how many weeks before that I need to plant the actual seeds. This information is usually presented on the seed packet or on the seed company's website. An amaranth plant can be inside in its seedling tray under lights, growing in its little container for about 4 to 6 weeks before it has to be planted outside. So, 6 weeks before May 17th is April 5th. So I know that's when I am planting the amaranth seeds. Once I know when I'm planting the seeds, I can figure out approximately when the flowers are going to bloom based off of the days to maturity, which is also usually on the seed packet or on the seed company's website. An amaranth plant takes about 65 to 75 days from the time the seed is planted to the time the flowers are mature and blooming. So I take the biggest number, 75 days about, just to make sure I'm not behind schedule. And I divide that by 7 over here, which is about 11 weeks. So 11 weeks after I plant the seed on April 5th is June 28th. Sometimes I start with a different date and work backwards or forwards depending on the situation, but normally that's how I do it. For some reason my screen capture doesn't show this, but if I click on this little arrow for any of these columns, I can sort oldest to newest, and that organizes all of the dates oldest to newest. So I can see at a glance, these are all the seeds that have to be planted on January 19th. Here are all the seeds that have to be planted on March 15th. It's very nice. The same goes for approximate bloom dates, so I can organize by about when the flowers are going to bloom. So if someone has a wedding on the 21st, I can say these are all the flowers that will be available most likely that are before then. So it's very nice. It's a very good way to organize it, and I hope it was slightly understandable to you, because it makes sense to me. Thanks so much for watching this video. This is my first one that I've filmed, and probably one of the first ones to get uploaded. So I'm still learning a lot, obviously. If you have any thoughts about how I can improve or what I've done so far, you can leave them in the comments. I will cry at them, but I appreciate it. If you have any constructive criticisms or positive thoughts, you can leave those in the comments below and I'll read them and apply them. And if you like this video, I guess like and also subscribe to the channel. I'm gonna do more stuff like this. It's gonna be so much fun. That's all. Goodbye.